In her early childhood, Ashley decided that girls could be either beautiful or smart, and she chose to be smart. Her older sister Doris was the epitome of beauty in everyone's eyes. With her light-blond, silky hair, green mermaid-like eyes, and a model's figure, Doris was the centre of admiration. From an early age, she focused on her appearance, reading fashion magazines full of makeup advice and diet tips. Their mother, raising 2 daughters alone, had high hopes for Doris, envisioning a good life once she got married. Ashley was bewildered. How could her mother put the responsibility for her happiness and well-being on some other person? She could only sigh heavily. Her mother, although beautiful and kind, seemed to her too frivolous, believing the idea that a woman's appearance is the key to her success. Pragmatic and responsible, Ashley thought that hard work was necessary for success, and that relying on men, as her mother and sister did, was unstable and illusory. Doris jokingly referred to Ashley as a bore, and their mother tried to impose her views on Ashley, believing it was for her daughter's benefit. "I'm worried about your future, can't you see it? You're so beautiful. You've inherited the best from me and your father. Once you finish school, we'll find you a wealthy fiancé. Just try not to be a boring nerd. Men prefer cheerful, smiling girls," said her mother. "No thanks. I'll study economics after school," Ashley replied. Do you know how competitive that field is? Doris would always argue at this point. You have to be exceptional or have good connections. "Yes," sighed their mother, "we can't afford to pay for an education, and you most likely won't enroll for free." Despite her family's objections, Ashley remained focused on her goal. She spent day and night studying, searching for additional courses online, mainly free ones, as her mother, a cashier at a local supermarket, couldn't afford to pay for her education. Their father was hardly present in their lives, since he had started a new family. He sent some money, but that was all. There was no communication, no support, and no help in difficult times. Ashley learned from an early age not to rely on him. Deep down, she wanted to meet and talk to her father at least once. She wanted to get a degree in finance, start her own business, and one day make him regret abandoning them. Ashley achieved her first goal. She was admitted to a free study at the Faculty of Economics, where she was so eager to go. She was so happy to see her name on the enrollment list that she began to shout and jump in front of her computer. "Are you crazy?" Doris walked into the room, carrying her newborn son, Dylan. Yeah, she had recently become a mother. The child's father paid child support but showed no interest in Doris or Dylan. The payments were meagre due to his hidden income, a common tactic to pay less child support. So Doris's plan failed, but she didn't give up her dreams of a prince who would solve all her financial problems. The mother supported her eldest daughter in everything, adored her grandson. Ashley was also glad to take care of the baby when she had time, but she didn't understand how it was possible not to draw conclusions from what had happened. She believed it was time for Doris to choose a different path. However, her sister continued to seek wealthier men on dating sites. "I am accepted to the university," Ashley explained to her puzzled sister. "Wow, cool. So you're going to move away from us now? Going to the city to study?" Ashley's family lived in a backwater town with grey 3-story brick buildings and old wooden houses. It was technically a town, but it felt more like a village. Ashley's mother was thrilled about her youngest daughter's enrollment. She hadn't anticipated such an event because she thought her daughter would eventually follow in her footsteps and work at a supermarket cash register. "Well done, darling." The woman embraced her youngest daughter. "I'll support you as much as I can, but I'm sorry I can't send too much money. You should also dress well. Besides, you'll have better chances of meeting a decent man in a big city." "Mum, are you starting again?" Ashley smiled, but she was touched by the fact that her mother offered to help her. The girl knew that it was not easy for her to get this money, but she was ready to help her daughter while she was still a student, and it was invaluable. A new chapter in Ashley's life began at the student dormitory. Ashley enjoyed her studies. By the end of her first year, she was convinced she had chosen the right path. She found economics easy and engaging, and she breezed through term papers and tests. Additionally, Ashley started earning money by writing essays and projects for others. The money was substantial by her standards. Because of part-time work and studies, she had no time at all for student parties, going to clubs and similar entertainments. Of course, sometimes Ashley wanted to go out, to have fun, but the girl realized that every minute counted. Every month, her mother diligently deposited a small amount into her account. It was a significant portion of her mother's salary, and the girl was extremely grateful. While the sum was not ample for the city, it was her mother's support that kept Ashley afloat. Ashley scrimped on everything possible, but she remained optimistic. She was confident that she was inching closer to her goal, and that everything would eventually fall into place just as she had dreamt. But in her third year, just before New Year and Christmas, there was an event that made Ashley reconsider her plans and generally turned her life upside down. Ashley was preparing for her History of Economics test when her sister called. Ashley instantly felt something was wrong, because Doris wouldn't call at 3 a.m. for no reason. "Mum's in trouble," Doris's voice rang out. She sounded on the verge of hysteria. "Please come." What happened? Ashley felt a cold dread creeping over her, her heart constricted with anxiety. "She was hit by a bus." "When? Is she okay?" Doris was too distraught to provide coherent responses. She was sobbing, managing to utter only fragmented sentences. It appeared the accident had occurred earlier in the evening, but Doris had only been informed minutes ago. Ashley immediately abandoned her plans for exams and took the first bus home. She found Doris in a dreadful state, with dishevelled hair and a face swollen from crying. She was holding her youngest daughter, Hope, who was still a baby. By that time, Doris was already a 3-time mother. Eldest son, Dylan, and 2 daughters, Polly and Hope. None of their fathers were involved in their upbringing. They only had fun with Doris, not intending anything serious. Despite this, Doris repeatedly made the same mistake. She intentionally became pregnant, hoping to create a blissful and stable family. "If something happens to Mum, how will I cope with them alone?" Doris asked Ashley, her eyes filled with confusion, as if expecting her to provide a solution. Ashley was literally ready to hit her sister at that moment. It was unknown what was with their mum, and she was only thinking about herself. "How did it happen?" Ashley wondered. "I don't know," Doris stammered, pacing with her daughter. "I was told that Mum was crossing the road in the wrong place and jumped out right in front of the bus. The driver couldn't do anything. He's in shock. He's in the hospital too. He had a heart attack right there. While they were sorting it out, I got a late-night call, and I called you right away." "So Mum's alive?" Ashley asked. That was not the most important thing for her. Ashley dashed out of the house and hailed a cab on the go to be at the hospital as soon as possible. However, once at the hospital, she received the devastating news. Her mother had passed away. She had died while Ashley was en route to the hospital. The doctor said there were no chances for a good outcome. The injuries were too serious, and Ashley would not say goodbye to her mother anyway. She was in a coma. And still, the girl blamed herself for her slowness, for not supporting her mother by the hand while she was still alive. It was a challenging time. Organising the funeral and trying to support the older sister, who had to care for her children despite her grief, was tough. The most painful realization was that their closest and dearest person was gone forever. Their father did not attend the funeral. He must have known what had happened, but he never reached out to his daughters to offer support. Perhaps he thought they were adults, both over 18, and they were no longer his legal responsibility. At that very moment, Ashley decided she would never seek a relationship with this man, even if she achieved career success. He had shown he didn't need her, Doris, or their mum. It was the final realization that her father was a stranger to her. But Doris was different. She needed support. She wept for days on end, and Ashley let her. She understood it would help her sister cope. During this time, Ashley took care of her nephews, and despite the grim circumstances, the children brought smiles to her face. Their playful games and cute chatter reminded the girl that life goes on. But Ashley couldn't stay with her sister for long due to the study, and she returned to the city. Soon she was desperately short of money, and she began to combine her studies and additional work in a cafe. Of course, with time, she gained many skips of lessons and unsubmitted tasks. As a result, she did not even get admission to the next session, and expulsion was imminent. Teachers acknowledged her previous achievements and tried to go in her favour, but she still did not succeed. Her only option was to transfer to the correspondence department. But the catch was that all the budget places were taken, and she couldn't afford the commercial option. The dean knew her situation, and one day he suggested what he thought was the suitable option. "You're a diligent, promising student. Take a sabbatical for a year, citing family reasons. Get a job, save up for studying. You can do it. You're determined. Then you'll be reinstated. What do you think?" Of course, Ashley didn't want to interrupt her studies. On the other hand, what other options does she have? She knew she was unlikely to pass the session, which would mean expulsion. And where do you go then? To Mum's apartment? But knew Doris's boyfriend had already moved in there. He was different from her previous suitors. He seemed to genuinely love Doris and was kind to her children. They could have a real family, and Ashley did not want to interfere in their idyll with her presence. Eventually, Ashley decided to seize the opportunity presented to herself. "You know, I think I'll take you up on your offer." She smiled timidly at the rector. "That's a good decision," he responded. "Just remember to come back to the university in a year. We'll be waiting for you." That evening, she began her job search. She needed money urgently for basic survival. To afford food and shelter, this became her prime motivation. It became clear that finding a job in her desired profession was virtually impossible for a girl without a completed university degree. Ashley faced continuous rejection. Employers didn't consider candidates without a diploma. The girl knew she could well show herself at the interview, but it did not even come to that. After several days of fruitless search, Ashley understood it was time to put her dream of working in the financial field on hold, or rather, to postpone it until better times. And while it is necessary to find anything else. When the bar of expectations was lowered, things got better. Plenty of jobs were available to her. Waitress, cleaner, saleswoman. However, the pay was minimal. Sure, it was enough to survive if she economized, but she needed to save for a year of studies. With these low wages, that was impossible. Regardless, Ashley urgently needed a job, and she decided to work as a waitress in a bar downtown. There were several reasons for this choice. Night shifts paid extra, tips were often substantial, and the flexible hours allowed Ashley to write term papers and tests for lazy students. It was extra income and kept her mind sharp. Ashley enjoyed working at the bar. Her colleagues were amicable, the management were understanding, and the clientele were respectable. The proprietors of the bar cared about their reputation, maintaining a pleasant atmosphere and removing any unruly customers. Moreover, local and visiting musicians played live music every night. Ashley loved listening to their performances, singing along and dancing. The atmosphere at the bar made her feel her work like a celebration. It was in a rock bar that Ashley met Wes. One day, the host introduced a new rock band that had formed just a couple of months prior. Wes was the bassist, but he was more than that. He was the one who conceived the idea for the band and composed the songs and music. He was modest, always in the shadows, but keenly observant of everything: the band members' behaviour, the audience's reaction. Wes was the main in the team, though on the stage most of the attention was drawn to the singer. For some reason, Ashley was immediately attracted to him. She didn't recognise herself. The girl understood perfectly that now she was not in the position to fall in love and have affairs. She was focused on her career, on her studies, on her return to the university. She couldn't be distracted by all this. And yet, Wes was reserved and focused on his work, not engaging in flirting with the waitresses or other girls. Perhaps this serious demeanour attracted Ashley, who found him similar to herself. Wes started frequenting the bar, sometimes with his band, other times with friends. Despite their increasing acquaintance, he remained aloof, showing no explicit interest. However, Ashley often caught him glancing at her. He would quickly look away and engage in conversation with someone else. Ashley desired his attention, compliments and gestures of interest that other customers often gave her. Then she would definitely let him know that she was interested in him. One day, a new girl was in Wes's company. No, girls had come with him before, but they were girlfriends of other members of the group. And this one, there was clearly something between her and Wes. They didn't display overt affection, but they did share tender looks and warm smiles. Once she rested her head on his shoulder. Wes, usually cold and stern, gently stroked her hair, as if she were a kitten. A pang of envy resonated within Ashley. She promptly identified it as jealousy. Ashley meticulously started assessing her competitor, searching for flaws. She considered her too thin, almost gaunt, a quality she found unattractive. She critiqued her long nose and thin hair. In Ashley's eyes, she was no match for her. For the first time, Ashley felt proud of her looks. She knew she was as beautiful as Doris. She was tall, slim, long-legged, and with a perfect figure. Her friends often suggested she should consider modelling, but such a career held no appeal for Ashley, as she considered self-display as somewhat degrading. And now, despite her attractive features, Ashley found herself competing with a woman she considered dull. There was nothing striking about Wes's girlfriend, yet it was clear that she made him happy. All this hurt Ashley, and she finally made a decision that she had once thought unthinkable. One Saturday, when her shift was already ended, Ashley stayed late to help other waitresses. When Wes stood up and headed for the exit to take a phone call, Ashley followed him discreetly, deciding it was now or never. Meanwhile, Wes's girlfriend remained at their table, conversing cheerfully with his friends. Wes stepped out onto the porch, pacing in front of the bar while explaining something to someone. Ashley observed him through the large door window. Wes wasn't smiling or joking. The conversation seemed to be serious or unpleasant. Regardless, Ashley decided she would approach him no matter what. Wes ended the conversation and was about to return to the bar when Ashley intercepted him. Fortunately, they were alone on the porch. "Hi," Ashley greeted with a smile. "Hi," Wes responded, looking at her with interest. "We already said hello, didn't we?" "Yes, we did," Ashley nodded. I need to talk to you." Wes immediately focused on her, ready to listen. He could have brushed her off or shown irritation, but instead Wes looked at her with his dark, intelligent eyes and waited. I like you, and I've liked you for a long time, Ashley confessed, deciding to be direct. I don't know how to explain it. I'm drawn to you like a magnet. It's never happened to me before. I don't know what to do with these feelings. Ashley lowered her gaze. She had said her piece. What would happen next? Wes was probably searching for the most polite way to reject her. Suddenly, overcome with embarrassment, Ashley regretted her actions. But then she felt his hands on her shoulders, gently touching, as if she were incredibly fragile. Ashley. Her name, spoken by Wes, sounded like beautiful music to her. Ashley, I couldn't even imagine this. Wes looked at her and smiled, a rare sight. His eyes, she noticed, were radiant with genuine happiness. Without a word, Wes kissed Ashley, causing her to feel dizzy. He held her as her legs were shaking. He kissed her, then stroked her back and head, gently pulling her against him. I've been watching you for a long time too, and I'm attracted to you too, he confessed. Then why? I never noticed. I thought you didn't care. I didn't want to embarrass you. Besides, I'm older, too old for you. I thought you were attracted to other guys, the successful, tough ones. With your looks, anything's possible. You're incredibly beautiful. You're the inspiration for my song. Didn't you realize that Elf Princess is about you? No, Ashley admitted. It's a very beautiful song. I like it. I didn't even realize that was inspired by me. But that girl who came with you, are you two together? Together? Wes couldn't help but grin. We've been together since my parents brought me home from the hospital and introduced me to Kate, my sister. So she's your sister? Laughed Ashley. I thought she was your girlfriend. That's why I decided to have this conversation today. Sister indeed, Wes said, hugging Ashley tighter and breathing in the scent of her hair. Ashley and Wes started dating. Wes had liked the pretty waitress for a long time, but he did not approach her, believing that girls would not like a guy who had not yet achieved success. Besides, he was busy with his band and arranging shows. The band was beginning to make money from their songs, and things were looking up. Despite being a rock star, Wes was shy around girls. He had many friends he could joke with, but Ashley was different. She made him feel special, and this made him nervous even though he was used to performing in front of large crowds. Soon, Wes suggested they live together in Ashley's apartment because of its good location, reasonable cost and coziness. Wes moved in and took on the responsibility of paying the rent and handling minor repairs that the apartment needed occasionally. As it turned out, Wes was an excellent cook, surpassing Ashley's culinary talents. Being a creative person, he created masterpieces, both in the recording studio and in the kitchen. He was gentle, sensitive, and attentive, fully immersed in his creativity without neglecting his favourite person. They often talked, went for walks, and even discussed new songs that Wes was composing. Occasionally, Ashley contributed a phrase or word to his songs. Wes would eagerly incorporate her ideas, making her feel proud of her contribution to a potential hit. Ashley was completely immersed in her feelings and new experiences. Before meeting Wes, she didn't understand what love for a man felt like. She had been too busy with her studies and survival. She found immense joy in being with a man who showed her genuine care, admiration, and affection. She cherished the warmth of his touch, knowing that this man with black eyes would do anything for her. However, her sister Doris disapproved of her choice. As always, she had her own standards. He's poor, has no personal apartment, stable job or business, she argued. But he's a musician, Ashley countered. He has his own rock band. So what? Who needs them anyway? These one-day bands are a dime a dozen. There's no guarantee they'll succeed. I think you might have the wrong guy, given your beautiful looks. Well, I've got 3 kids. Who needs me? I'm content with what I have. I don't complain. But you? However, Ashley didn't expect her sister to understand. They had always been vastly different. The most important thing was that she was happy. She was loved. She had someone near and dear to her. Yes, Wes was going through a tough phase, but he was persistent, working towards his goal, making the right connections and planning things. Ashley supported him in all his ventures, and he valued her loyalty. He often told her how grateful he was for her presence in his life. One day, Wes embarked on a risky venture. He invited a famous rock band to perform in their city. It was planned for his band to be the opening act, which was expected to boost his band's popularity. In general, organizing such concerts was a way to earn a decent income. However, things didn't go as planned. The concert didn't attract as many attendees as expected due to a major rock festival in a neighbouring region. Wes overlooked this fact and faced significant losses. The costs of musicians' fees, hall and equipment rental, rock band tickets, promotional activities, all these were only partially covered by the ticket sales. Despite the concert being fantastic, Wes ended up with substantial debts that needed to be cleared as soon as possible. But how? It was hard for Ashley to look at her beloved during this period. He looked confused, worried. Wes took a loan, but it was only a drop in the ocean. His friends helped him. The situation improved, but still, the debt was still quite impressive. That's when Ashley offered to help. She had savings set aside for her studies. She also did something she had long been against. She took out a loan. This was enough to cover the debt. "Where did you get the money?" Wes was surprised as Ashley handed him several packs of the bills. "My friend paid me back the money she had borrowed from me, and the insurance company finally paid out the money for my mum's accident." Ashley lied. She knew that if she told Wes that it was her last money, he would never accept the money. "Thank you." Wes embraced Ashley tightly. "I'll pay it all back, you'll see. We'll be successful soon, and I'll repay everything." Wes paid off the debt and continued his work with the band, while Ashley steadily paid back the loan. Saving for study was no longer an option, and in general her salary suddenly became much smaller. The bar was going through a bad time. Fortunately, Wes took on most of the expenses, buying groceries and paying rent. However, his income was unstable, consisting of money from occasional performances at corporate events and sporadic part-time work. But Ashley didn't concern herself with their financial situation. She revelled in Wes's attention and care, reciprocating with love and support. She didn't worry much about the future. If she didn't go back to university this year, she could do it next year. The most important thing was that Wes was with her. And then Wes disappeared. No, he did not run away from Ashley. Nothing terrible happened to him. It started out as a business trip. "Can you believe it?" Wes had exclaimed, hugging Ashley tightly. His eyes were alight with excitement. "I've been invited to Dubai to write music for a band. They found me online. They liked my work, and now they want me to join them." Ashley was incredulous. She knew the band Wes referred to. They were popular musicians who toured globally, and they had noticed Wes and were offering him a collaboration. It was unbelievable. "I have to leave for a while," Wes continued. "Do you realise what this means?" Ashley nodded. She understood what it meant. Money, fame, and a wealth of opportunities for Wes's growth as a musician. It meant connections that could open doors he'd only dreamed of. But it also meant parting ways for an unknown length of time. Wes had made it clear He would have to go, not them. He began to prepare for that trip. He needed to find a temporary replacement for his band while he was away. He was also busy securing his passport and other documents and gathering necessary items for his trip. In all the chaos, he was too consumed by the excitement of the upcoming changes, and he seemed to have forgotten about Ashley. The girl watched him and knew he would forget about her in that foreign country, swept up in the new experiences and the thrill of success. Perhaps he would even find someone else there. Yet every evening, Wes held her tenderly, assuring her of his longing for her. "Time will fly," he'd say. "We have video calls. We'll always stay connected. Besides, I'll finally be able to properly provide for us and pay you back. I know you need the money. Maybe we can even buy an apartment. My band will get noticed. I'll gain priceless experience. I'll learn so much. Everything will be okay." Wes believed it, and Ashley could see he wasn't lying. But something told her things would change once he was abroad. Wes just didn't realize it yet. In the end, it all turned out as Ashley had predicted. Initially, Wes called daily as promised, sharing his experiences from his new location. Everything amazed him, and he was overwhelmed with impressions. Then, he literally vanished. He stopped calling and didn't answer Ashley's calls. The long unanswered rings invariably concluded with a message stating the line was busy. Concerned that something dreadful might have happened, Ashley was initially alarmed. However, her fears were allayed when she saw Wes performing with his band on a music channel. He looked different, more mature, more serious than usual. Clearly, there was nothing wrong with him. He had simply decided to start a new life, severing old ties, including forgetting about Ashley. Ashley held out hope for a call from Wes, an explanation, but he disappeared entirely from her life. She made a habit of watching the music channel daily. Occasionally she would spot Wes. He was never the focus, but the camera would occasionally catch him. Also, a girl often appeared with him, always the same one. Perhaps she was a makeup artist or a costume designer for the band. She was beautiful, vibrant. It seemed likely that there was something between her and Wes. Ashley was intensely jealous of Wes and his new girlfriend, as well as other potential interests. The pain she felt was unprecedented, compounded by fear of loneliness and lack of support. An unpleasant mix of emotions overwhelmed her, with financial struggles adding to her worries. Her meagre salary barely kept her afloat. The situation worsened when she lost her job at the bar due to its bankruptcy and the subsequent takeover by new owners, who turned it into a hooker lounge. Ashley had special memories and feelings connected with this place, and its loss was another blow for the girl. Wes would have understood her, supported her. With him, in general, everything was easier and more pleasant. But he was thousands of kilometres away from her, and, it seems, already forgot to think about her. Wes could not even imagine the desperate situation she was in. He didn't know about her job loss, about the loan she had taken for him. Even if he did, why would it matter to him now? Ashley urgently needed a well-paying job. She diligently searched through job ads, hoping to find a solution to her financial difficulties. Although her landlord had generously agreed to wait for payment, she knew his patience was limited. One job ad stood out because of the attractive salary it offered. The job was for a nurse to care for a sickly little girl. The ad didn't specify the girl's condition, but it was clear the girl needed round-the-clock care and supervision, including taking medication by the hour, accompanying her to procedures, and so on. Ashley had experience caring for young children, thanks to her niece, Doris's kids. She enjoyed looking after her nephews and knew how to keep them entertained. However, this job was different, as it involved a potentially seriously ill child. Despite her reservations, she decided to pursue the opportunity. She called the ad's contact number and spoke with a pleasant man who asked her about her age, occupation, education, and experience with children. Following the call, she was invited for an interview. As the interview approached, Ashley became increasingly nervous. She desperately needed this job and its accompanying salary. She was filled with anxiety, worried about what might happen if she didn't secure the position. A cab delivered Ashley to a gorgeous country cottage settlement, featuring tall, beautiful houses encircled by fences. A woman, an au pair as Ashley later discovered, met her at the gate. Her employer, Mr. Pearson, a man in his 40s with sharp, intelligent blue eyes and perfectly styled, lightly grey hair, greeted Ashley in the living room. His athletic figure suggested that he prioritised health and appearance. Ashley suddenly felt insignificant beside him. "Good morning," Mr. Pearson greeted with a warm smile, instantly alleviating Ashley's embarrassment. His open and kind smile made him feel familiar. "Hello," Ashley reciprocated with a smile. "I'm here about your ad." "That's excellent. I'll tell you up front, I need a caregiver for my daughter, Debbie. She's in a bad condition, and it's not something everyone can handle. The doctor monitors her health daily. I could hire a nurse, but there are already too many people in white coats in her life. I'd like someone else to be there for her, perhaps a cheerful young girl like you, who knows many songs and fairy tales, who can cheer up a child, inspire her, and come up with interesting activities. Basically, someone to brighten her leisure time." "What's wrong with your girl?" Ashley couldn't help but ask. "Nobody knows." Mr. Pearson lowered his eyes, which suddenly darkened and became anxious and tense. "No one can understand what's happening with my daughter. It's as if her body is destroying itself. There's no sign of autoimmune aggression. They're constantly running tests. They would have noticed if there was, but she's fading away, and nothing seems to help." "Poor girl," exclaimed Ashley. "The doctors are doing their best. I have the resources to help, as you can see, but they aren't omnipotent, unfortunately. In general, Debbie doesn't just need a caregiver. We already have Lynn, our beloved au pair, for that. She can feed her and give her medicine on time. And we don't just need a nurse either. Debbie is supervised by a nurse who performs all necessary procedures. Debbie needs a friend, someone who can bring her positive emotions. The doctors say that's very important for her condition. And looking at you, it seems to me that you're just what she needs. Young, beautiful, cheerful. You have a kind look in your eyes. You know how to empathise. I can see that." Ashley nodded, already eager to meet Debbie. If the little girl needed positive emotions, she would provide them. Ashley was determined to cheer up the girl, who was suffering from such a severe disease, to brighten her grey everyday life, and to find a way to make her life more pleasant. "If you're ready to start work right away," Mr. Pearson continued, "then let's get started. Let's say a probation period of 3 days, and then Debbie will decide. Of course, you're paid for your time regardless. Do you agree?" "Yes," Ashley nodded. "Great," Mr. Pearson stated. "Then Lynn will introduce you to Debbie, and I must be off. Business." After Mr. Pearson left, Lynn, a middle-aged woman with a surprisingly soft and cosy demeanour, turned to Ashley with a question. "Have you had experience with young children? Do you understand what they are like?" "I have nephews," Ashley nodded. "That's good," Lynn responded. "But our Debbie is an unusual child. She probably realises it herself. Debbie hardly ever leaves her bed, tires quickly, and it's difficult to engage her. However, you must try. Debbie needs to be distracted from her pain, from her discomfort, and she needs to walk at least an hour a day. That's what the doctor said." "I understand." Well, let's go meet her. Ashley followed Lynn upstairs and entered the nursery. It was a spacious, princess-themed room with a large window that invited an abundance of daylight. Shelves lined with expensive toys and books stretched along the walls. In the centre of the room was a mini playground, complete with a slide, swings, and even a trampoline. And closer to the window was a bed, a large, round bed with a pink canopy. Ashley looked around curiously, having never seen such a room before. Could this all truly belong to one child? Amidst the splendour, Ashley initially missed the room's petite occupant. The girl was in bed, surrounded by large plush toys. There was a cat, a fluffy white bear, and a brightly coloured crocodile. A frail, pale 7-year-old girl, almost blending into the white bedding due to her unhealthy skin colour, lay among toys. Her huge blue eyes, reminiscent of her father's, studied the newcomers with curiosity. Debbie propped herself up on her elbows, a task that seemed to require a great deal of effort, and addressed Lynn. "Is this the new rehabilitologist with you?" The complex word rolled off the young girl's tongue with ease and familiarity, sounding oddly out of place. "No, dear, this is your new friend, Ashley. You two are going to play together." "Dolls?" Debbie perked up slightly. "Whatever you want," Ashley responded with a smile. The girl roused feelings of sympathy and pity. "I really like playing with dolls." "That's good, because Lynn doesn't have time, and Daddy doesn't know how to play. Adults have a lot to do." Ashley shrugged her shoulders. "That's why they can sometimes be boring," Debbie suggested, and smiled conspiratorially. "Boring," agreed Ashley. Debbie laughed quietly. "Well, I can see you two will be fine." Lynn looked genuinely happy. "Have fun here, and I'll go cook dinner. Oh, and Debbie, remember the nurse is coming to see you today." "I remember," the girl frowned. "Another IV?" "What to do, sweetheart?" Lynn kissed the girl on the top of her head and left the room. Ashley was left alone with Debbie. "Well, shall we play? You have so many beautiful toys here. My eyes are dazzled." Ashley turned to her charge with a smile. "You'd better read to me," the girl requested. The brief conversation seemed to have taken the last of her strength. Debbie sank on the pillows and pulled the blanket over her thin body, even though the room was warm. "Good," Ashley agreed. She was shocked by the child's weakness. 7-year-olds are usually full of energy, like Dylan, Ashley's eldest nephew, who was the same age as Debbie. He couldn't sit still for 5 minutes, always exploring and inventing things. If he found himself in this room, he'd immediately start jumping on the trampoline or sliding down the slide. Doris refers to him as the perpetual motion machine. His younger sisters keep up with him, and poor Debbie just lies on the bed. "What do you want me to read?" "About princesses. There's a book on the windowsill. Lynn started to read it to me yesterday, but she ran out of time. Can you continue?" It was a substantial, beautiful book with bright pictures. However, to Ashley, the story seemed silly, dull, predictable, and formulaic. She didn't enjoy such fairy tales as a child. "How about we make up a story about these princesses?" Ashley suggested, and as expected, Debbie's tired eyes lit up with interest. "How do we do that?" she asked for clarification. "It's simple. I start and you continue." The activity captivated Debbie. She was inspired to invent adventures for the princess. They were racing in the race car, then they were kidnapped by a dragon, and later rescued by a prince. Debbie's imagination ran wild, which seemed to surprise her. Then Lynn entered the room and brought lunch, mashed soup and stewed potatoes. But Debbie grumbled. "I don't want to eat," she said. "Especially not this." Lynn looked at Ashley, clearly expecting any help. "Let me feed you," Ashley offered Debbie. "Every spoonful will be another princess adventure. I'll make them up as I go along. What do you think will finish first, your food or my imagination? The trick worked, and the food was finished sooner than Ashley's story, but Debbie wanted more. Lynn was genuinely glad and smiling, left the room. Shortly, a nurse entered the nursery, and Debbie immediately looked gloomy. IV? The girl asked the nurse hopefully. The girl nodded sympathetically. I'll do it quickly, don't worry, it won't hurt, and you can sleep afterward. And we'll have coffee at this time, Lynn said, and led Ashley to the hidden kitchen. Steaming cups of coffee and a fresh pie waited on the table. Now, you and Debbie seem to get along well, the woman said warmly. That's good. Debbie didn't like her previous nanny, but she took to you immediately. I've already called Mr. Pearson and told him everything. He's very pleased and happy. He asked me to take good care of you. The girl too? Ashley smiled. I feel sorry for Debbie. My neighbours are so lively, but she can only lie in bed and can't play. It's terrible and unfair. What do the doctors say her chances are? No prognosis. Lynn shook her head. They can't even make a diagnosis. They just dismiss the symptoms. After Debbie's drip, she'll feel better for a while. Take her for a walk after her afternoon nap. Mr. Pearson is the girl's father. And where is her mother? On a business trip. Does she have a demanding job, so she can't care for her daughter? If only, sighed Lynn. Rose is gone. The labour was difficult. The doctors were so focused on saving the child, they didn't notice the mother needed help. The next day, after the birth, Rose had an internal bleeding. A rare case. Debbie was also in intensive care. She was born prematurely. It was a hard time. What a pity. Yeah, agreed Lynn. Let me tell you the whole story. You seem to be here for a long time, so you should know. Donald Pearson grew up in a prosperous family, surrounded by loving parents and a wealth of opportunities. He had his own room, annual summer trips to the sea, birthdays celebrated with friends, and a happy childhood that extended into a joyful youth. Thanks to his parents' investment in his education, he graduated from school with honours. They ensured he had the best tutors to fill any gaps in his learning. Mr. Pearson's parents had waited for a child for many years. When they had accepted their fate, God gave them an unexpected gift, a son. Naturally, Donald became the centre of their attention. And Donald was never ashamed of his older parents. In fact, he was proud of them. His father was a businessman, and his mother was a doctor at the hospital. They were respected throughout the city. As Donald grew older, his parents aged rapidly. When Donald was in his 3rd year of university, his father passed away. Stroke, intensive care, coma, and that was it. Suddenly, Donald found himself managing the family business, left to him as an inheritance. While he had shown interest in his father's business as a teenager and had some knowledge of the operations, he relied heavily on the friend of his late father. Donald himself had to juggle his studies, business, and support his grieving mother, who was devastated by the loss of her husband. 3 years passed. Donald Pearson had just received his diploma, taken over his father's company, and started to rise. Then tragedy struck again. This time, his mother. Donald was left alone, feeling desolate and isolated in the large family home. Fortunately, Lynn, their au pair, who was almost like a family member, was there. She had known Donald Pearson since he was a baby and treated him like her son. Having no children of her own, she devoted all her care to the grieving young man. It was hard for him, Lynn observed, shaking her head. He was just a boy, but his work saved him. He had to make decisions, hold meetings, sign agreements, and so on. As time passed, Donald transformed from a naive young man into an intelligent, shrewd businessman. Lynn was proud of him. He had matured, become resilient, and gained self-confidence. She hoped that he would find a good wife, start a family, and then her heart would rest easy. But there was no one special, Lynn said. Sure, some girls were interested in Donald. He was handsome and wealthy, which made him desirable. Sometimes he had been dating with some girls, but I could tell they weren't his type, and I didn't like them either. It seemed that they were only after his money. And then Rose appeared in his life. Donald literally met Rose on the street. She was rushing to an interview for Mr. Pearson's firm, as he would later find out. Rose worked as an accountant and was downsized, so she was looking for a new position. Donald was merely out for a walk to get some fresh air, with the aim of buying donuts at a nearby bakery, and Rose, rounding a corner too quickly, ran into him. The scene that followed could have been from a romantic music video. Rose's bag slipped off her shoulder, scattering its contents onto the pavement. Both Donald and Rose scrambled to gather everything. As Rose apologized profusely, Donald was unable to tear his gaze away from her beautiful grey eyes. It was love at first sight. When the young people sorted out the bag and the things that fell out of it, they synchronously got up, smiled at each other, and Donald, as a man, made the first step. He asked the name of the beautiful stranger, and then he introduced himself. A real romance blossomed. Lynn had never seen Donald so happy. Rose was intelligent, understanding, and kind, quickly finding a common language with Lynn. A couple of years after they met, Donald and Rose married. They were a wonderful, harmonious, happy couple. Love, mutual understanding, and respect were the pillars of their relationship. Lynn's heart warmed at the sight of them. They decided not to rush into having children, Lynn shared. They travelled, worked, and socialised, but I, in my old-fashioned way, advised them not to delay. I wanted to babysit their child. But Donald and Rose lived for themselves. For a long time, 5 years after the wedding. No, they wanted children, but not immediately. Later, when they were happy with everything. Then came the news of Rose's pregnancy. It was unexpected, but welcomed with joy by everyone. "Well, it's time," Rose concluded. "The child has decided not to wait any longer." "Thank God," Lynn exclaimed. "I think you'll have a boy. You've become even more beautiful, Rose. Girls steal their mother's beauty during pregnancy." However, Lynn was mistaken. The ultrasound confirmed that Rose was expecting a girl, a healthy, strong girl. Rose's pregnancy was challenging. Initially, she struggled with toxicosis. It eventually subsided, but other problems arose. High blood pressure, edema. While the baby developed well, Rose's health deteriorated. She lost weight, lost her appetite, and was often bedridden. The usually energetic Rose lacked the strength to even walk downstairs. In general, Rose's labour began much earlier than the due date. Despite the doctor's attempt to delay the birth, Debbie arrived prematurely and weak. She did not cry, was not placed on Rose's chest, and was not even shown to her mother. The process differs when it comes to newborns, who should have remained in the womb for at least 2 more months. Debbie was immediately rushed to the intensive care unit, fighting for her life. Rose, on the other hand, seemed fine initially. She was exhausted from childbirth and worried about her daughter. Her anxiety was apparent, and it was perfectly understandable. After examining Rose and finding no abnormalities, the doctors moved her to a ward. However, serious symptoms appeared too late to be addressed. Donald and I were so worried about the girl. Lynn was on the verge of tears. It was evident that, after 7 years later, the memory was still painful. "We were afraid that our little girl wouldn't survive. She was born prematurely and was extremely weak. And then..." When Donald received a call the next morning, informing him that his wife had died from internal bleeding, he was in disbelief. He initially thought that the news was about Debbie. His mind refused to accept what he was hearing. Debbie, however, survived. She was a strong girl. But Rose, she was gone. Donald aged dramatically over the following months. He barely slept or ate. I was worried he might... But he pulled through. He had to work through it for Debbie's sake. But truthfully, He initially harboured resentment towards his daughter, blaming her for what happened to Rose. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't help it. He was just angry with her, that's all. Debbie was discharged home, and a nanny was hired for her, as someone had to look after the baby. Lynn was too old for that, but she played with Debbie with pleasure, drove her around the yard in a stroller, talked to her a lot, and she was the only one who gave the newborn the love she needed. She treated Debbie like her own granddaughter. Donald initially avoided the child. Although he provided for her needs and occasionally took her for walks, it was only at Lynn's insistence. He never took the initiative himself. However, when Debbie became ill with the flu and was hospitalized, Donald experienced a change of heart. He put his work aside, stayed by his daughter's bedside, sang songs to her, and recited poems. His care seemed to aid Debbie's recovery. With Debbie's return home from the hospital, Donald changed. He became a loving and caring father. Debbie grew up in good health and with a sharp intellect, bringing joy to both her father and Lynn. Despite this, Lynn was concerned about Donald's loneliness. It seemed to her that there would be no happiness for him until he met the right woman. Only now it was a very difficult task. Donald's chosen one had to love and accept Debbie, and otherwise there would be no question of any union. "Well, God heard my prayers," smiled Lynn, "and Donald has Karen. She is beautiful. You can't take your eyes off her. She's also smart. She has a child herself, a daughter a little younger than Debbie. It's a great family. Karen got a job with Donald, and it all started at some corporate party. So, it's just the usual story." Karen was kind to Debbie, often taking her and her youngest daughter out to amusement parks or movies. Debbie grew very fond of Karen and her daughter Molly. She was truly happy. When Donald and Karen got married, they started living together. Debbie began experiencing symptoms such as dizziness, nausea, weakness, and a lack of appetite. Despite numerous medical consultations, including visits to top clinics and renowned professors, no diagnosis could be made. Debbie's health was noticeably deteriorating. The first year she was quite fine. She was still on her feet. Lynn was almost crying again. It was obvious that her heart was genuinely hurting for the little girl. And after New Year's Eve she got sick. She's not well at all now. I'm so scared for her. And it's not clear what kind of illness has attacked our little girl. Since the new year, the cause of her illness remained unknown. For Debbie's safety, Karen and her daughter Molly temporarily moved into a separate apartment. Molly was attending kindergarten and potentially bringing home infections, which posed a risk to Debbie. Of course, Karen often comes, almost every day. She's a good woman. She visits Debbie, brings her goodies. She brings Molly sometimes too, when she's not sick. As soon as she started kindergarten, so it began, sick day after sick day. So it turns out that husband and wife live separately. Such a family. Well, there's nothing to do. The situation is like this. "It's a very strange situation," said Ashley, who was shocked by all the story. "Well, that's just the way it is," said the elderly woman. "I see you've gotten along with Debbie. That's good. She'll be happier with you." Days passed. Ashley now resided in the room adjacent to Debbie's nursery. However, Debbie often requested that her nanny stay overnight in her room, which had a very comfortable sofa. They would chat before bed, hand in hand. Ashley recognised how significant this was to Debbie, who was clearly starved for attention, despite the presence of several adults. Mr. Pearson, a very caring and concerned father, was also a pleasant conversation partner. They often discussed Debbie, and he always listened attentively to Ashley, never interrupting or disputing, and asked insightful questions. Ashley was introduced to Karen as well. Lynn was correct. Karen was indeed a beautiful woman, with sculpted cheekbones, lovely curved hips, and the grace of a panther. However, when Karen interacted with Debbie, When she adjusted the girl's blanket, smiled at her, or stroked her head, Ashley sensed insincerity. It was evident in seemingly insignificant details, like a cold glint in her eyes or a disdainful movement of her lips. Something elusive and very unsettling. One night, Ashley had a peculiar dream. She found herself in a room with tattered wallpaper and creaky floors. She sat on a stumpy stool by a dark window that offered no view. She realized she was dreaming and tried to wake up, but for some reason she couldn't. Suddenly, Ashley found a woman appearing in front of her, seemingly out of nowhere. Ashley recognized her as Debbie's mother from photos. Rose gave a sad smile and gazed at Ashley with a warm, gentle look. "Watch her," Rose said in a quiet, melodious voice. "Beware of Karen. She's troublesome and dangerous." Rose disappeared as suddenly as she appeared, leaving Ashley with many unanswered questions. How was she supposed to watch Karen? Why was Karen dangerous? Awakening in a cold sweat, Ashley felt as if she had been thrown back into her body. It was a strange sensation, and Rose's words still echoed in her mind. Ashley didn't believe in supernatural occurrences, but it lingered in her mind. The next day, Karen didn't come, though Ashley waited for her. She was already sure that this woman was involved in something bad. Ashley believed that Karen was harming the family and disliked Debbie. Ashley felt with all her heart that Karen only pretended to care but lacked genuine empathy for the girl, and she wondered why no one else, not even the experienced Lynn, noticed this. Karen came the following day, as beautiful and vibrant as ever. She first greeted Debbie before heading to the kitchen. "Debbie's thirsty," Karen said, looking at Lynn. "Let me make her some cocoa." "Oh, rest up, I'll do it," the au pair fussed. "No, I can handle it. I feel like I want to do something for her." "Oh, you're so thoughtful." Ashley remained silent, focusing on Karen as Rose had instructed her in her dream. Lynn was busy with the dough while Ashley pretended to gaze out the window. But she was observing Karen, and suddenly she saw it. Karen skillfully retrieved a small vial from her sleeve, dropped a few drops into the milk, and quickly hid the bottle. It all happened in a couple of seconds, a few swift movements, but Ashley saw everything. "The princess's drink is ready," Karen smiled. "Ashley, could you hand me her favourite mug, please?" Ashley complied, silently watching as Karen poured the cocoa into Debbie's favourite mug, adorned with her favourite cartoon characters. Ashley realised Debbie shouldn't drink it, and she had to take action. And Ashley feigned a slip, bumping into Karen and causing her to drop the mug. It shattered, spilling cocoa all over the floor. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy," Ashley apologised, quickly grabbing a rag to clean the mess and pick up the shards. "It's okay, I'll make more," Karen responded, her voice tinged with barely concealed irritation. Ashley knew she couldn't repeat the act without arousing suspicion, so she had to accept that Debbie would receive cocoa from her stepmother's hands. While Karen and Lynn were with Debbie, Ashley squeezed the rag she used to clean the cocoa into a clean jar. She intended to have the liquid analysed to find out exactly what Karen had added to the cocoa. Perhaps it was just vitamins, in which case there would be no need for alarm. Yet she had a feeling it wasn't that simple. Ashley had to wait 2 days for the test results. Upon seeing the report, she was horrified. The drink contained poison, deadly and causing symptoms similar to Debbie's. It was like in a horrible fairy tale. Ashley was afraid to tell Mr. Pearson about her investigation because he might not believe it. But it was clear Karen could not be let near the girl. She wanted to send her to the other world and had almost succeeded in this endeavour. Ultimately, Ashley mustered the courage to confide in Mr. Pearson. She relayed everything, including her odd dream, the cocoa incident, and the test. She feared his reaction, worried he might berate her, throw her out, or accuse her of intending harm to his daughter. "You know, under normal circumstances, I'd probably fire you for saying such things. They are quite peculiar, don't you think? However, I need to check any idea. Well, don't tell anyone about this yet and take a vacation. I need to sort things out. Lynn will contact you when you can go to work again." During her days off, Ashley was on edge. She was in the dark about the situation at Mr. Pearson's house and felt anxious about Debbie, who she had grown to care for deeply. When Lynn finally called, Ashley got worried. What will they tell her now? How did it go? "Come," Lynn said. "We have such a thing here. Come quickly. Debbie misses you very much." Ashley did not have to be begged for long. In half an hour she was already in Mr. Pearson's house. The door was opened by the owner himself, still as calm and imperturbable. His appearance made it hard to guess what had happened. "I want to thank you." The man finally allowed himself to smile. "You were right. Karen, she really wanted to... I'm afraid to even say it out loud." "That wretch wanted to poison Debbie," Lynn exclaimed, foregoing any politeness. "What an evil woman! And to think I trusted her so much." The story was as old and banal as the world. Greedy Karen was unwilling to tolerate a rival in the form of her wealthy husband's favourite daughter. She wanted her own daughter Molly to be the sole heiress of Mr. Pearson's fortune. And of course, she wanted a share of it as well. Karen, having studied pharmacy, never worked a day in her profession, choosing instead to live off rich admirers. Her beauty, gifted by nature, provided her with opportunities for such a lifestyle. The knowledge she acquired in college was enough for her to devise a method to send her despised stepdaughter to the grave. A poison that's difficult to detect in blood and tissue unless specifically sought. Karen incorporated the toxic substance into the meals she prepared for Debbie. Consequently, the girl became weaker, slowly fading away. "I can't believe it. It's incomprehensible." Lynn could not calm down. Ashley empathized with her. Indeed, Karen's actions were monstrous. How could she do such a thing to a defenseless child? Debbie trusted her, loved her. Mr. Pearson installed surveillance cameras in the kitchen. It was then revealed that Karen was adding poison to Debbie's food every time. Karen had also been caught red-handed and was now under investigation. Molly was taken by her father, who had longed to spend time with his child, but Karen had been preventing it in every possible way. "Molly will be okay," Lynn reassured. "The child is not to blame for what her mother planned to do." "And how is Debbie?" Ashley asked. "Debbie is doing well," a cheerful voice responded from behind. Ashley turned around to see Debbie's eyes. Although she was still thin and pale, she had the strength to move around the house. The doctors assured a speedy recovery. Ashley and Wes were strolling through the children's section of the store, surrounded by pink and purple. Dolls, makeup kits for kids, and soft toys filled the shelves. "In Dubai, a friend of mine bought a voice-controlled robot for his nephew. Maybe Debbie would like that," suggested Wes. "She's a girl," Ashley reminded him. "She definitely wants a doll, a cartoon character. We should try to find her one. Maybe next birthday she won't want toys at all. Kids grow up so fast. It's wonderful." "We'll soon see for ourselves," Wes said, placing his hand on Ashley's rounded belly. The baby responded with a subtle but noticeable kick. A year ago, after Debbie was rescued from her evil stepmother, Ashley received another surprise. Living with Debbie, she quickly recovered, engaged in active games, and requested walks around the city. The adults initially chose not to reveal to Debbie the truth about her illness, fearing it was too horrific. However, the smart girl pieced together bits of overheard conversations and her own thoughts. Surprisingly, the story didn't affect her as adversely as the adults feared. Debbie accepted it calmly. "It's just like in fairy tales," shrugged the little girl. By September, Debbie was back in school with her peers. Meanwhile, Ashley finally returned to university, choosing a distance learning program to balance her studies with work, even though her work felt more like life in a family with relatives. The cheerful Debbie, kind and wise Lynn, and always busy but polite and attentive Mr. Pearson. With them, Ashley felt warm and cosy. They welcomed her and were grateful for her role in saving Debbie. They would often discuss the strange dream that changed everything, unable to imagine what might have happened without it. Perhaps Karen had aroused Ashley's suspicion at once because she didn't like Debbie's stepmother at first sight. Most likely, Ashley was scrolling through her thoughts in her head, and they might have been transformed into an unusual dream. One day, Ashley went to the dean's office for some business. Suddenly, Wes approached her. Ashley, in disbelief, recoiled. Wes appeared both happy and bewildered, smiling at Ashley as if no one else mattered to him in the world. "I've finally found you," he exclaimed, pulling her into his embrace. Ashley was confused, but did not resist. She leaned into the man she loved, while trying to forget his betrayal and abrupt disappearance. But the explanation was quite simple. Wes had dropped his phone in the ocean while on a steamboat walk. He couldn't get a SIM card in another country, and he forgot his account password. All this made it impossible to restore the phone book. Since Ashley wasn't registered on any social networks, he had no means to contact her. Wes resorted to writing letters just like in the old days. However, Ashley had moved in with Mr. Pearson and his family by that time, and she couldn't get any letters. "I couldn't just abandon everything and leave. It was about my career and our future, our well-being. It was unbearable without you and without news from you, but I knew I had to wait. I was securing our financial future. Once that was done, I planned to fly to you and explain everything. I was unaware of the troubles you were facing. I didn't know you had taken out a loan, nor did I know about your job loss. You've had such a difficult time. In essence, it was just an unfortunate series of events." Ashley was relieved that her feelings and Wes's were genuine, devoid of betrayal and deceit. Their misunderstandings had finally been resolved. Wes had secured a contract with a renowned producer in his country. He had everything he'd dreamed of: concerts, performances, tours, and the chance to share his music with an appreciative audience. And, of course, there was the money. He even managed to buy an apartment for them, which was currently being renovated. Wes and Ashley got married and were expecting a child. Ashley felt happy and loved. She no longer worked for Mr. Pearson, and a more mature Debbie no longer required round-the-clock supervision. But they all remained friends, and right now, Ashley and Wes were choosing a present for Debbie for her 9th birthday, which might not have been.